Welcome into the Fantasy Football Lab. I'm Arlen. This is Nate. And today we're talking about draft strategies. What's up, Nate?
Tis the season. I'm doing good, man. I'm feeling good, ready to get into this. It is pushing its way through August, so we're in the season. We're gonna start thinking about all this fun stuff, and man, I've been enjoying my time. Even jumping into the mock versions of this. So
Yeah,
real draft season coming. Let's do it.
I know, man. It's exciting. It's coming real close. And I added everything to the family calendar of all the different drafts. And I'm pretty much in trouble. Like, there's a whole week of just drafts, and I've got to figure out my life.
Yeah, I got the same situation going on. My daughter looked at it. She's moving out for college here at the end of the month, but she's like, "Well, it's not like you're gonna miss me. I'm leaving, and then you got drafts back to back weekends." And I was like, "Yeah,
My
this is how
neighbor
I'm coping
has
with you leaving, kiddo."
Yeah, my neighbor has this in-person draft that he does where they actually get a full-on like live in-person renting a cabin. Like, they do the whole thing. Like, it's a really big deal for them. And I'm jealous of that because I, for one, have never had a live draft where I've actually met with the whole league and drafted live. We've always, from the beginning, been spread out all over the country. And he's dropping his kid back off at college and had to move up his flight so that he could get to the draft in time. And you know what? Kudos, man. I like the dedication.
Priorities.
Yeah,
We'll
man.
take it. Holy
Yeah.
cow.
Side note before we get into the main piece, one, we had a change in our channel from 90 to 95. We are on our road to 100. I'm hoping soon we can hit that 100 mark. But either way, we also had some good comments from the last video. And you know what? From some of the shorts cut up. And even though they were calling me essentially stupid and that my opinions are invalid, I still like engaging. I still like going through that, starting conversation afterwards. To clarify here, okay, if it was you, to clarify, I think pass interference bonus would be sweet. If your wide receiver causes a pass interference, you should get like a 0.025 or 0.25 points. I'm saying it's an option. It's not hockey. Like one comment said, it's an option. It doesn't need to be, and it's fantasy specific. I feel like sometimes when people see our shorts, they're like, how is this a thing? Like, it's fantasy specific and it's optional. I just want to toggle. That's all.
I'm just saying the team gets the yards. They get to play in real football. So in fantasy football, taking away the opportunity for fantasy players to get points with those yards, they should be awarded somewhere, somehow. We're not saying they get all the points as if they caught it, but just some percentage point to say that they made the effort to go out there. They earned the pass interference call by tripping up the defender. I'm with you. I don't think you're dumb. And despite what the commenter said, I understand like 75% of what you say.
There you go. I understand 75% of what I say. Like, that's pretty good. We're right in line.
So proof in the pudding, we do respond to our comments and we do see them. We see you and we'll take it. Because like we said, we're not going to get offended because these are conversations we're having any the heck way. So jump in, join the conversation.
This last video was all of what we are like. We hope and we wish that we could see in our preferred platform is Sleeper. And we would love for them to be able to do certain scoring things or settings or league types within it. So if you haven't checked it out, it's a really fun episode. It's a wish list of features for Sleeper. Tag them in it. It'll help. We're trying to get as many views from that company as possible in it because we want some of these changes. They're pretty sweet. Today, though, Absolutely. It's all about these draft strategies. So another fun one, another one where we can kind of like engage with y'all and like learn about. And the other one, leave your comments on like what you would like to see. This one, what are you planning on using? What have you found successful? What do we not mention here? Because we're going over some of the main ones, but if there are some up and coming ones, we learn like all of you from the community itself. So if there's a draft strategy that's up and coming that you like more, let us know. That being said, we've got a quick word from our intro. Help us get to 100.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Lab.
Whew. All right. Before we get too deep into our draft strategies, I figured we can kind of start off with just an overall one. I'll run you through what we're going to be talking about, but an overall strategy that we can throw in anywhere into any draft strategy. Some things that are higher on the hierarchy than I think any specific or particular draft strategy is for me. So first of all, our agenda today, what we're looking at the hero draft strategy. That's both for running back and wide receiver. Same thing with zero draft strategy. So what are those two about? We'll go through them for both, and we'll kind of what are some of the pros and cons of that. What are you giving up? What are you risking? And how did that go last year? And then we'll talk about some other ones that like balance ones, and we'll do Superflex, a little conversation about kind of like how do we personally approach Superflex. Most of our leagues are not super flex, but we have a few that are super flex leagues, and how do we approach that? Late round tips, how do you like to like reach for those players that are filling in the roster spots at the end? And then we'll go through. I think that's it, man. I think that's it. But I'm sure, as in with every episode, there's a few things that spark our interest during it, and then we add like fake segments at the end because we just want to talk about it. This is
I
a
was going to say,
podcast where we're having this conversation already all the time, and one day we just hit record. So we've hit record on this one. I'm excited to get into it, Nate.
yeah, absolutely. I think the big thing here is that, like, we never, it's almost pointless to go through an agenda because we feel like we add more and more to it. So absolutely, let's go.
Yeah. So first of all, big picture stuff, right? We're going to go through like this flexibility, I think, is a huge piece overall. Because if you go in and you're too rigid with whatever plan that we talk about today, you're going to find yourself at a loss if other players are managers in your league are using the same strategy. The whole benefit of a draft strategy is that it kind of differs from what your league mates are doing. So if it doesn't differ, everybody's using the same thing, really pay attention to that in the first couple of rounds. And you're going to have some people who have no draft strategy that are kind of grabbing whatever feels right in the moment. Some people are just trying to fill out a starting roster first. Usually like that's a newer fantasy player. Manager might be just trying to fill every spot and then going for bench. Some people like that later in their fantasy careers as well. And then make sure that you're looking at like a tier system. That's the number one thing for me, is making sure that I have a tier system with my ranking. I think you use that as well too.
Yeah, I think the big thing with having your tiers is that you got to live within who's going to be available for you at the moment that you're willing to have. Don't sacrifice who you believe in for your draft strategy, right? So if there's no longer anyone that's going to meet the criteria for someone that you believe in, and you're going to be bummed about having this player on your team because that's who was available following your strategy, don't do it. Adjust your plan. Mm-hmm. Enjoy the game. I said this a lot last season. Like, have fun in the game and don't bum yourself out following too strictly or too rigidly to a plan that you created before the draft started, because all bets are off once that draft countdown starts.
And a quick note on tiered based rankings, if you're not familiar, if you look through a list of your top 50 running backs and you don't have them in tiers, there might be 5 or 6 that are next to each other that really they're all great, and you can see them, you can get them in different parts of the draft. So I use it in 2 ways. One, if there's a few people left and one of those is 3 or 4 rounds later and it's the same tier to me, then I'll see if I can address other positions, or I might grab a running back that I personally have higher up or lower on my tier or ranking, but it's in the same tier, so I can maybe grab that other one later on, where even though I might prefer that other one in that moment. The other piece is if you're comparing positions. So if you have a tier of players that are similar and there's only one left at wide receiver and you're planning on taking running back, but there's 4 or 5 left there, that is a cue for you to grab, if it's a similar tier, that last one before that big drop to the next tier.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good call out, because we've all screwed ourselves, and then you go full tilt because now you don't have that guy, and then now you're reaching 3 rounds early to grab someone because you think you really need to fill that spot that was left voided by the tier that you missed out on.
Yeah. When there's a run of players at a position and it kind of breaks what your plan is, that's a huge way to keep aligned, is knowing that there's some players in this tier that are going to be there most likely coming up. And then also when you're seeing this run or you're choosing between players, another piece is to know your league and know your league in the moment too. So if look at the draft board, see what it's easier on some platforms than others to really see, but look at the other teams and what do they have already? Do they have Like you're going for a tight end or a wide receiver or a quarterback, let's say, and you see that the next 6 teams before you and your next pick already have one tight end. Maybe 4 of them do or something, but there's 5 tight ends you like. Well, then let them fall and grab whatever tight end ends up falling from that same tier that you like. Or you might choose to go to a different position or see that you really need to capitalize because the last of a great tier is there and you can let some other ones fall too. So tier-based systems, comparing that to what's on the board and what the teams in between you and your next pick are a great way to be able to kind of project some of that too.
Yeah, it's a good call out because for me, if one of the top 3 or 4 tight ends is off the board, I'm willing to wait a few more rounds to go grab whoever's in my next tier if I missed out on those first 3 because of that tier system existing, right? Like if you've got 3 or 4, whoever your top 3 tight ends are, right? That's a position you only need one of on each team. They're probably not going to be driving for them. If those 3 are gone, I've got like 4 or 5 that are all kind of that dead zone of tight ends that I don't mind having. So I can wait until 3 rounds later than I was going to draft a tight end based on my strategy, right?
Right.
I can wait for that to fall in my way. Other thing,
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to go with, and it might be the same place you're going, but I know that you did some leading up to this episode, mock drafts. That really helps within each league where you're going to be drafting kind of both the auto mock drafts where you have a computer picking the other picks, or it's usually helpful within each league to do one that you're selecting each one, knowing that what managers are in each spot and what their tendencies are. If you know the league enough, it might help you create a little bit of a game plan, and you can create a cheat sheet off of that to help you along the way.
Yeah, good call. Yeah, that's a good call. And then doing live drafts, even one thing that I've exercised is going even to a different medium to live draft with actual people that are out there doing things so you can watch what tendencies are and see how like the ADP that's out there right now that's posted for a player is actually meeting up with how drafts are playing out. Allows you to mess with all the strategies that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
And not everyone can nerd out and have all the time in the world like we do, but well, we really don't. We just have a problem, I think is the issue.
Yeah. I think we're pretty busy.
We don't have all the time in the world. Both of us have multiple kids and day jobs, but we still have fun doing this. And maybe it's how we deal with the world around us. But yeah, mock drafting a little bit in all of the different formats.
Stinker time. Like that's when you pull out your phone wherever you are. You can throw in a couple mock drafts around this time just to understand it a little bit more.
Absolutely. You got me on Tinker Stinker. All right. Anyway,
let's talk about our different strategies here. We'll get a little bit deeper into it. Now. All right, draft strategy time. My personal favorite, and I have a specific within my first favorite to go to, and then I can alter if I need to within the draft. But the hero strategy in general, where I feel like a big piece of this, and it might be a good decision for you too, to kind of consider what makes you tilt less. So our hero strategy for drafting is our first one we're talking about. And what is a hero strategy? It's anchoring with one elite player at a certain position early on, and then focusing on the others before you address the second or third of that position. So it's hero running back and hero wide receiver are the 2 that we usually focus on.
Yeah, this became popular a few years ago, and so more and more people are doing it. So it's not as effective as it once was to do, but I still love the hero strategy because, and for me, it's RB. I'm a fan of going hero RB early on because just going through a few mock drafts this year, at least, if you don't grab that hero RB, if you try to drive your RB position with what's left in round 7 or later, there's not a lot of sexy things left, to be honest, and a lot of question marks, right? So having that, I can mess around with that if I've got a solid flex core. I'm okay with my RB2 being from that abyss of running backs, but if I can start off my draft, depending on where I am, with a Bijan or a Saquon, or Bijan or Saquon.
Yes, we did.
Right, get these guys right, or Gibbs. Sudra, even if you believe in what Gentry's going to be, first pregame results aside, because right now all of us have more rushing yards than Ashton Genty.
I'm still willing to trade you for him. take them off, take that stress off you.
I'll think about that. I'll put some solid thought into that, right?
All right, cool.
But for me, as long as I have that solid running back, I'm going to tilt less later and be okay with just being a little bit more in abyss with running back, because I feel like there's more I can do with the wide receiver position if I don't get a hero wide receiver at the beginning.
Yeah, I think that's, if you can get one of those hero pieces and then hope for the best on their health. The classic strategy is waiting for around like round 7 to get your second one. I don't think that's really necessary. It depends on what you do with tight end and quarterback. And I would say at least round 5 you wait until, and then you can find the best available. But watch your tiers starting around like late round 4, early 5. And then if you feel like you can push it, you push it as far as you think you can, and then you take your shot on your next running back. This strategy, yes, it makes me tilt less. It lets you still get high-end wide receivers, and then it gives you the opportunity to pick up either, and this is a good tip, I usually go either early tight end or quarterback. I don't usually do both of those onesie positions. Whichever one has the best value. If I see somebody drop to a round or 2 later of those top guys, then I'll jump on it, and then I'll ignore the other position until a little bit later and look for a value later on in the drafts. But this hero, whether it's hero running back or wide receiver, gives you that flexibility to be able to do that. I think even more so with hero running back, but hero wide receiver is another one where if you're depending on where you are in the first, it might make more sense to grab that hero wide receiver if you're going to come around quick. And that's usually what the defining piece is for me. If I feel that I'm towards the end of the first, it's usually going to be hero wide receiver, but most likely the draft has dictated which one I'm going to do. I'm going to get, if there's a stud at either position, I'm going to grab that and circle back around with the other positions to strengthen those and have a couple mid-tier running backs or mid-tier wide receivers.
So if Cedric Tillman is sitting there for you at pick 11, you're going to go grab Tillman because you're stoked on that.
What a great
run.
Call out that we should temper our dynasty love for players when we're moving into redraft.
Very fair. Yeah, I was going to say, and like just to cap on that, like hero I find works at the turn either side of it, right? Like that's where I lean into hero a little bit more. So I think that's what you're calling out. But if you're at the turn, whereas for me, if you're mid-round, I actually prefer this next strategy that we're going to talk about.
Okay. So zero strategy. What is a zero strategy? This is where you intentionally avoid one of the positions early and you load up everywhere else and then attack this one. There's another one that I'll bring up to the top just to kind of call it out. If you went zero running back or zero wide receiver, the opposite would be robust running back or robust wide receiver. And the slight difference here is, and it's why it's worth mentioning right here, is a zero running back, for example, would be either zero run back or robust wide receiver. And the difference is, which one are you really completely ignoring, or are you really mixing in those other positions early? So zero running back, you're intentionally, though, avoiding that position early, loading up elsewhere. I prefer zero running back myself, but this is so heavily dependent on last year, what people are doing in the current draft, my league's tendencies. And this and hero running back is something that really hurt people last year, especially this one. Because what you're doing when you do zero running back and you're not picking them for the first few rounds at all and really punting the position till a little bit later, you're relying on the waiver wire and you're going to start out slow and you're hoping there's injuries and you're hoping there's these like Kyron Williams that come out of nowhere and lead. And there really wasn't any of that last year. The running back, the top guys were healthy. There were no real guys coming out of nowhere. Bucky Irving was like the only one. And in that situation, you don't have the ability to rebuild through the waiver later. And it's harder to trade a top wide receiver than a top running back. So you can't even balance your team with trades. So it's probably one of my favorites and one of the riskiest. Why is it your favorite?
So here's the situation, right? Just like I talked about with tight ends, if you're in the middle of the round, if you've got pick 6, 7, 8, it's not likely you're getting Bijan or dang it, I'm gonna do this right. You're not gonna get
Bijan.
Bijan.
He's on your dynasty team. Like, if you can't pronounce it right, trade him to me.
You know what? That's fair. That's fair. You're convincing me now. I think I'm trading both Genty and Bijan to you after this call. after this is over. We'll talk about it. But yeah, to my point, if you don't have Bijan, Gibbs, or Saquon available to you at that point, like a rock star running back, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're at that point, you're talking about folks like you got Jefferson there, you've got Lamb. You can start stacking all of your wide receivers and have guaranteed points from people that you know that are going to be elite. Whereas the next set of running backs, to me, people like Christian McCaffrey with all his injury risks that he's got coming on. You don't know what's going to happen with Derrick. Eventually, Derrick Henry is going to stop Derrick Henrying. I don't know when that's going to happen, but
I don't know.
My guy is eventually going to fall off, right? And then even as you go further down the list with, and I don't want to say anything bad about this guy because I just traded for him, but with Achan, like all these guys that have all these question marks about what they easily could be RB1s and do that, but they also have a lot of things that could go against them. I'd rather get the guaranteed, if I'm having risk anyway, I'd rather get the guaranteed wide receiver points that I know that are out there and then take those risks with running backs so much later. So, and fill out the rest of my roster. I'm not necessarily robust wide receivering, right? Because if I'm going through and there's a great quarterback or tight end, I'll take them, but I'll not mess with running back until a little bit later. Like I said earlier, not as late as round 7 per se, but start loading up later down when I've got a little bit more options in round 5.
I think robust wide receiver is probably my least favorite. I would do robust running back if there's any position that I'm really going after.
Yeah.
Robust running back would be similar, but not exactly to robust running back would be similar, but not exactly to the zero wide receiver. Zero wide receiver, I'm more okay with than zero running back for myself. I do like both of the strategies. I like zero in general, just focusing on all the other ones because you're choosing your weakness. It's kind of like the full team roster structure version of too many of your players, your elite players, having the same bye week. Where I'm okay with that because I get one loss out of that, but all of my other weeks are so much stronger that I'm okay with that. And that's also why I don't look at bye weeks at all during drafts. But if it happens to fall that way, I'm happy. Now here, if you're choosing one position just to be super weak at, then you've got tight end that's going to be an advantage if you went early on it. You've got the freedom to be able to get an early tight end and quarterback and still have some robust running backs. And then at the end, you can pick a lot of these sleepers or somebody you really think is about to break out or just did. And it's maybe some of the older ones, like you got your Sutton in Denver, who's valued pretty low. Lockett for years was valued so much lower. And you can get some of those less sexy players at a position to fill it out later on. And I think that's also easier to find off the waivers than a stud running back. So anyway, zero wide receiver, packing in all the running backs and other positions in the beginning, doing it later. I think this one is one of the safest from being like a full tilt, along with one of the hero pieces. I think zero running back is so fun because it's extreme and it's dangerous. But that's going to make me tilt harder than I think anything else. I'm going to freak out at some point in the draft. And when the clock is ticking down, I'm going to make some mistakes.
Yeah, I think you just need to be right about the wide receivers you're grabbing, right? You're making sure you're stacking the right players. You got to be elite at that. And then be willing to take it in the chin for a couple of weeks before you can start trading off some assets. Because like you said, it's really hard to trade those wide receivers unless there's some injuries out there. But I think if you're going to go zero running back, when you get to those later rounds, you start drafting not just the least sexy old timers, people like James Conner that are to be sitting for you there in round 6 or 7. But one thing that I like to do, and this is me giving away my personal stuff, but I think you've seen me do this anyway, is that's when you start grabbing other people's handcuffs. For their injury prone. Yeah, right. And or those folks that people a bit avoided on the other side of a split backfield. Maybe someone grabbed Aaron Jones and you can get Jordan Mason much, much later in the draft. Go grab Jordan Mason, right? Like grab those people that are even less sexy if you're doing zero running back. But I know you're proselytizing the zero wide receiver. I'm going to stick on my zero running back field here.
Yeah. Well, so robust running back or wide receiver is kind of like the same thing as like a double hero. Starting out with a couple running backs, 2 or 3 out of your first 3 rounds and going forward. So I still mostly go for this next one, which is it's just a balanced approach. So I will try to grab. I will try to go hero most of the time. I usually don't go zero, but if the opportunity presents, like I'm just gonna keep nom grabbing them. But really, it's like best available, and we've talked about this a lot with Rookie Dynasty, especially. I'm like best available talent over everything. You're really like more on the team need, but of course best available that matches team need. And in a regular draft too, I am not really looking at my starting roster as much because I trade so much. And when I talked at the top about how like you need to know your league trade tendencies as well, there's one league that does not trade at all that I'm in. It's the only one that I'm in that I don't co-commission, and it's just a quiet league. And in that one, I will draft differently, and I won't draft with the idea of possibly trading than I would in another one. But balanced lets you kind of just choose really in the moment who is the best available. Let's figure out how it all slots in afterwards. But I'm not trying to balance my team itself, but just best player, grab them. Let's figure it out later. There's a limit to that, but that's the general approach.
Yeah, I mean, it's not super sexy to say, like, by the way, of all these things, we just want to make sure you're balanced and do what makes sense at the beginning. But
right
right from the get-go. And that's kind of how, drafts start early on. When you think about it, like sometimes the best thing to do is go best player available because you have that tradability later, even if you end up super stacked somewhere else. The other thing we didn't talk about really is that one thing that's going to dictate which one of these paths you follow with league context is the scoring format. I mean, it sounds silly to really bring it up, but ensure that like if you've got a tight end premium, like know that that's going to play out. If it's only half point PPR versus full PPR, and this is what screws me up because, like you said, you have a bunch of leagues you said that we are about half and half or maybe less Superflex leagues. Like we're about half and half full PPR and half PPR. So I got to remember which one I'm in when I'm doing my drafts, right? Because that's really going to tell the story about where I'm going to focus energy. Running backs that don't catch a lot of balls out of the backfield, right? We downplay them quite a bit in most of our leagues because most leagues today are PPR. But if you're half point PPR or standard, if you're like 105 years old or something and you're playing standard league still, I can't call us out. Like you made us sound so old and you're like, we barely played any Superflex. I'm like, that's what everyone's doing now, but it's so true. We don't play a lot of Superflex.
Yeah.
Like made it sound so old, man. But but yeah, that's if you're doing that and you aren't familiar with those, especially if you were just invited to some work league or to your buddy's league that they needed to fill a spot on, if you don't take a look at that scoring format, you might screw yourself in that draft.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge call out, and I think that the reason why Superflex isn't like the main one for me, I don't know if it's me or just how it is, but it feels like such an over dependency and attention on quarterbacks where there's more positions I care about in general in a 1 QB league. Quarterback just takes so much attention where it's hard to kind of focus on it, but it adds so much more strategy too. When we're talking about, should we focus on running back? Should we focus on wide receiver, hero, zero? Superflex adds its own strategies to it. And for each one of the ones we mentioned, it adds quarterback into that position or that strategy of zero quarterback, hero quarterback, robust quarterback. Like there's years where I've done, first round, second round was like quarterback. It was, I think Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. And that's really fun. But then you are really lacking in a lot of the other positions.
I remember that year.
You grab those ones too. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that year. I think it was actually Jackson Mahomes when Mahomes was Mahoming. You ended up
you're right.
with both those players. Yeah, it was Jackson Mahomes back in our day when he was a young buck still doing his thing.
Remember?
And you almost won that year. You had a great year.
Dad, how good was Mahomes?
I think we just leaned into that, right? Now we're just the old guys talking about fantasy football.
Yeah, that's right.
That's who we are.
Correct. So with that, let's talk about Superflex for a minute. Superflex draft strategies. And I'm sure, you've heard, we just talked about it. It's not our top set of leagues that we have. So would love to hear, like, how do you approach it? Like, another way to word that is help me. But for Superflex, what I usually try to do is I go hero, and it's a little less than hero because if if it's not the first few like top quarterbacks and Chase or Bijan, Barkley, these guys are sitting there staring at me, I'm probably going to go there. And then the next two of the next three of my rounds are going to be quarterback. But if I grab one of those top quarterbacks, then most likely I'm going to pick like round 5, 4, 5, like wherever that tier drops to, where that Fields kind of tier drops to, where it's like they're not great. They could just get benched, but they're going to produce while they're there, or they're just not sexy. Like Kirk Cousins has always been one of those that's just like a great late round. Stafford, Goff, those have been some like good ones. People aren't doing too early, but when you grab that stud at the top, it allows you to really take advantage in those early rounds. It's like the wild west of like what's still available so early. You can actually grab a couple of these, like you can go hero wide receiver and hero running back with a decent quarterback and a tight end, and like you can be like really stacked at every position for that first player, and then kind of have twosies after that. But that's how I usually go, and I don't go into Superflex with as strong of a strategy other than let's make that decision with the first pick, and then I have a pretty set strategy of what I'm probably going to do after that.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, I look at it and I try to hero it all the way and make sure I got one of the top 5 or 6 quarterbacks, and then I really honestly like that second quarterback, I let that thing slide, and just stack it up, because everyone's so focused on getting that number 2 quarterback, generally speaking, in a super flex league, that I'm gonna go grab like I think last year my second quarterback target in many leagues was Mr. Will Levis. Like that's what I'm talking. Like I go way far back on that list, because Will was him until if he didn't get hurt this year, he would have. Just kidding.
Dude, last year you were too on it with him. Like you made some great calls with that guy behind you, Lad McConkey, but you made some also very questionable calls with Levis, a banana ram Levis. But
this year it's going to be Daniel Jones. Write it down. Daniel Jones this year. He's coming out party for Daniel Jones.
Oh, God.
So I'm saying that's going to be my target number 2 quarterback, calling it here on the show.
Okay.
In most of my super flex leagues, I'll have him. Jones is.
Do you think so? I mean, I'm not going to step in your way, but I think that's a huge call out, though. I think in where I was saying the focus is so much on quarterback, where they also dictate the wins so much more than in other, just because it's a massive amount of points, and it kind of dilutes some of the others. But I think in that same respect, people overvalue, and I think you said it in the right way, they overvalue the second quarterback, where of course it's important, but you're doing super flex, but you are getting flexibility in that second quarterback play, and it really does allow you to kind of go for some other positions first. And I think people are drafting their second one too early for the most part.
Yeah, because what ends up happening is if you let it slide, you're thinking about quarterbacks for your RB2 that you're like fighting to go get, that are going to get you 10 to 12 points per week. You're probably grabbing a pocket passer that maybe gets 1 touchdown and 275 yards a week, right? You can probably get an RB3 or a wide receiver 3 that's going to get you a similar amount that you can put in that same super flex position, right? So like, and then have a little bit more flexibility with your team. It's not a forced quarterback position. Now, if your team is stacked and you drafted the right way and you can go get 2 top 15 quarterbacks, more power to you. But if you're like struggling to get that QB2 and it's like the 24th overall, or because every super flex league is going to have that one guy that drafts 3 quarterbacks in the first 6 rounds.
Yeah.
And so it screws up for everybody. Yeah.
I think this is also a good call out too, of like how many quarterbacks do you draft? I mean, I will potentially, if I'm going for a safe, like let's say a Baker Mayfield last year was a good, like, okay, he's not a stud, he's later, but he's probably not going to break out, but then he does, right? And then you've got maybe somebody else to pair with that is a rookie that you're not sure like how they're going to play, if they're going to get as much time, if they're going to get sat. So maybe if you're going to hold on to them for just a few weeks until you determine what they really are. But in general, even in Superflex, in one QB, for the most part, I only want one quarterback, one tight end. And in Superflex, I want 2, and I don't want any more than that. And I think that's another piece that is a wild card and hard to predict in your drafts of if everyone else feels the same way, because a lot of people do want that 3 quarterback, and they almost feel like they will be like the black market of quarterbacks if they can get a few on there. And for me, I'm good. I'll get 2, and one of them might be added if it's like a risky shot in the dark. I'll find out within the first week or 2.
Or if, he's still sitting there in round 15 or whatever, Arlen's probably to grab Shador. I mean, it's just, he's there for him.
I mean, by that time, we'll know if I am, if they're actually going to go that route or not. I mean, I went hard in the paint in Dynasty after him the entire offseason, and I say I was going to overpay, and then the game happened, and I'm like, okay, I don't know if it's overpaying anymore. It's kind of, there's too much excitement and buzz right now. Let's talk a little bit more about a couple of other things before we drop off, but there's a couple of strategies or tips that I want to throw out too. You mentioned earlier something I think we might disagree on a little bit, but in draft strategies in general, I don't love grabbing handcuffs in general. Like, unless they're handcuffs that also play and will get way better if you have like a Montgomery Gibbs, or if there's a rare one that who the handcuff is. But I find that time, year after year, with all the fab dumps, we find out that we don't actually know who the handcuff is. We don't know who's going to take over, because you might say they're the RB2, but are they the RB2 if there was no RB1? Or are they do they get bumped up to that, right? Are they the second most important running back on the team if that star goes down, where they sit? And a lot of times it's not the same person as we think in the beginning. San Francisco has taught us that time and time again. And last year, Guerendo, like, they went through so many, but like, for sure it was going to be Mason, for sure it was going to be, I forgot who, and then it ends up being Guerendo. So it's not only are you waiting for a running back to go down, which didn't prove very successful last year, but on top of that, you're also guessing, even if they do go down, who's it going to be? So there's only really a few. Like, you got your Montgomerys.
Yeah.
For Achane, you don't know if it's Wright or Gordon or if they bring someone new in, because that happens too. We don't really know.
Yeah, with the Madison news, it's such a bummer over there. Him going out. But I think the one that I look at as an example is that what's happening behind, or I feel like I know what's going to happen behind. I'm like so overthinking it. Bijan. I don't want to say it wrong anymore, because we've seen Tyler Algier do it a few times, right? So I believe Algier is going to be the guy. So I'm not as concerned, and this is where maybe it's a little mean, and maybe it's like not cool, but it's a strategy, right? Like, I'm not talking about with an early pick. I'm talking about later picks around 13, 14. If handcuffs are still there, if Algier's sitting there, and I'm not the Bijan owner, if I'm not that owner, like, I'll go grab him. With one of my flyer picks anyway. Yeah. And then he all of a sudden becomes
one of those ones that are worth it.
Right.
Like, I think he's worth it. There's like
those are the handcuffs I'm talking about, right?
Braylon Allen in New York. He's worth it. Those later grabs, if that one goes down, they could take over. Jacksonville, you can take your shot at either of the we don't know of the 3
talk to me about Jacksonville
who's the number one. It could be Tank. It could be ETN, and then what's our new one? Booty.
Yeah, the B.
What? Why is this? He's dead to me after I didn't get him. Booten.
That's right. I always mix him up with the new wide receiver out in Chicago.
Oh, Burden.
Yeah. Booten, B-U-T-E-N is the.
Yeah. Okay. So we don't really know. I mean, we think it's Tank, but it could be ETN, because ETN is like a sneaky pick this year, because you don't know.
Yeah.
And you're not really sure where it's going to be. Maybe it'll be solidified by most drafts like that last weekend, but we don't know. Those ones you can take a shot on the backups and see, and maybe like that's the other strategy of like, if it's unsolidified, maybe the backup becomes the number one without an injury. That's another case where you can kind of do that. But in general, I don't absolutely love drafting handcuffs.
Makes sense. We talked about using tiers already. One thing, and I know you don't love talking about this, but it still exists in the ether of fantasy football and the world around us. So we need to talk about it a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, I know A lot of leagues we co-commission. You've even gone as far as the sacrilege of removing positions from fantasy football. I don't understand this at all. It's a real football position should have a real offensive fantasy position. Should have a real football position should have a fantasy spot on your roster.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're talking about drafting defenses, which is one thing, and just you can cover your ears and earmuff it if you want, or when you're drafting kickers, right?
Yeah.
I like the call out that we had here around drafted by the early schedule and the reason for this is because you're probably going to be streaming these positions all year long, right? It's a very unpredictable spot, an unpredictable position. So it's not like, unless you got a rock star kicker that's bombed, like the rookie from Jacksonville, you see that 70-yard field goal he kicked, right? So
incredible.
It was exciting. It was exciting for football, really.
Yeah, it was. It was. It was extremely talented soccer.
So we could go ahead and, when you draft them, look at the early schedule for defenses. For kickers, look at just high-powered off. My whole thought process is making sure you're just drafting off of high-powered offenses that are scoring points anyway. That's guaranteeing you some points.
That doesn't do a push to take away all of your opportunities.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're still getting points for every single field goal. It's better than grabbing a football team that's going to put up a clean sheet every week, right? Like, who wants a Browns kicker? You know what I mean?
Nobody. Not even the Browns.
So it's just something to think about. Not Arlen's favorite thing to talk about. So I want to glaze over that.
I think it's a really important thing to bring up. And what I like to do in this situation, if you're, this is another tip. If you have if you have IR spots, I like in my leagues with IR, I like to put it like if you're doubtful, because 90-something% of the time you're out when you're doubtful. So let's just get it done. And then it lets people plan a little bit ahead of time. So if you're doubtful, but also if you're suspended, I also allow that in if you're suspended, you are allowed to be on IR in our fantasy leagues. So what I like to do is if your league allows it, which all but one, that same one that has a kicker, same one that doesn't do trades, also gets me every year because I forget about it. So I'm saying this just for myself. You have to draft for every position on your roster. You can't leave one blank. Gets me every time. But what I like to do is draft IR players, eligible players. So look at your settings of your league and then skip kicker or defense and then move them to the IR and then pick up your kicker and defense. You get an extra draft player, especially if you're going to go in the later rounds, like the last 2 rounds, which is typically what I do. I'll do that. Now, the kicker, you can go slightly early for a stud on a couple of rounds. I'm okay. Defense, you can usually find the best defense looking at the first 4 weeks of the schedule in the last round, because people are going for those stud ones from last year, and it changes so often that I don't like that strategy, but I do like looking at how does a team's schedule start. Let's target that one. Maybe you do it 14th round is probably when I usually pull the trigger, honestly, and then I get another like sleeper guy in the next one. But kicker, I'll go a couple rounds earlier because unfortunately, when you look at how teams perform in your leagues that do have kickers, it's usually the ones that got lucky with a great kicker that they ended up it's such a huge percentage of their team's points consistently every week. And which is why I hate that position. It's the worst for that reason. But anyways, but I'm willing to go a little bit earlier for that dumb position if I know that they're going to be that kind of player.
You know what like kills me a little bit inside every time you bring up that league that I'm not a part of, and then you have all these issues with? It's like, leave the league or add me.
Okay, first of all, I'm talking about a different one that I don't. You think no? I run that league. I wouldn't have kickers in there. So there's no kickers in there.
Wait,
I know. I have a deadline of dues this weekend, and I told everybody one by one, if you haven't communicated with me or paid your dues, I start looking for replacements so that we're good by the time the league starts. So communicate with me or pay your dues. I'm not going to chop you off, but I'm going to one by one start replacing people in those situations. You're the first one on the list. There's another person on the wait list. We'll get you in. I've been considering asking you about co-management, but I don't know what that would do to our relationship.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But what I'm hearing you say is that you're in 2 leagues that I'm not in?
Yeah, I am. I'm in one that is run by, they email all communication, and I'm pretty sure they just changed from faxing, and I'm surprised it's PPR. They did make that change, but they have no trophy, which is also, like, I talked to them about it. I think it's the 20th year this league has been around. So I told them it's time to get a trophy. Let's grow
That's
up and
insane.
get a trophy.
All right,
Let's
so
grow up and get
that's
a
your
fake
kicker
trophy.
league.
Yeah, that's the
That's
kicker
your
league.
kicker league.
Yeah,
But
for
you're
sure.
saying on defenses, though, you can get the best one based on, just to recap, based on the first 4 weeks of the schedule, you can pick out your best defense. So basically, you can pick out any AFC North team that's going to be playing Cleveland twice. And if they're playing Cleveland the first 4 weeks, that's the defense you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those are
Fair enough.
usually pretty good bets. There's a few really rough schedules out there to start the year, and I think if you just target the defense that has a couple of those winning weeks with those quarterbacks, like, I don't know, Murray, some rookies that haven't figured it out yet, like, it's a wild card, but that, like, they could make a lot of mistakes. Levis, for your love of last year. But that's been the episode today. We've gone through Hero, we've gone through Zero, we've gone through a couple other ones, including Superflex ones. So take a look. If you jumped around, jump back up if some of those interest you. But the overall thing is plan, but be able to pivot. So go in with a strategy, be flexible, use tier-based rankings. It'll help you pivot less. Understand what each strategy provides, what pivot it provides you, what weakness is there, and most importantly, what tilt it's going to force you to do, so that you can mentally prepare and have a strategy for that. So when you do inevitably tilt, you are either choosing one that you tilt less on, or at least you have a plan for it. And then know your league's tendencies. Make sure that you know their draft, their trade, how active they are on the waivers. The more you can know, the better. A lot of platforms show you everybody's tendencies by showing how many transactions, how many trades, all this stuff.
Oh, that's a good one.
So
Yeah.
So jump into the settings, jump into league history, and kind of look at all that. Who, if there's a lot of movement from people, then you might have a chance to just kind of correct some of the mistakes and just go for more talent throughout your draft. That being said, go ahead.
I was going to say, that being said, I was going to wrap this up because we
Wrap
are
it up.
talking for a long time today. But join the party, everybody. Make sure you're riding along with us to this journey to 100 subscribers. We're getting ever so close. Ensure that you're commenting. We will engage with you even if you hate us, but we will apparently call you out on the next episode. So be aware. So make sure you comment. Let us know what your favorite strategies are. Let us know the ones we missed. We'd love to break them down on a future episode for sure, especially with how this game that we love is ever evolving and always changing. So follow us along, hit subscribe, comment, and get in with the party.
Cheers, y'all.